Welcome, everyone. We are here for our YEO and counselor training, and we are now going to turn it over to Pat with some words on preparing just words about the program and some information that's needed. Pat?
Thanks, Sheila. I, as acting chairman now and the outbound chairperson for the district, I have stepped into the shadow of Bob Haydorn, who has really caught us by surprise, and we're trying very hard to get things moving again. He had great plans for the program for this year. Unfortunately, with his very quick medical demise, we were not able to find out everything that he had planned. So Sheila, Susan, and I have been working diligently to get the program back on track and the student applications out to all of you, which I believe is currently only being held up while we wait for volunteers to complete their vetting process. And as soon as we get those completed for your club, for you people, the applications will be made available to you. And in that application process are guarantee forms, which right now is the most critical document. Sheila, if you can real quickly show the, let's talk about the inbound program first, if you put that up. Okay, here we have the 5 students that are coming into our 5 Rotary clubs. From Brazil, Spain, South Korea, Japan, Germany. And there's a column that's marked GF over here on the right. And that stands for the guarantee form. So none of our foreign students have their guarantee form. And I was just remarking to Susan, who's the Akron Club Youth Exchange Officer, that I received a call from the Spanish Ohio Erie contact person, the multi-district, indicating that it was urgent that we get the guarantee form to the girl coming here so that she can make an appointment with our federal government's embassy in Madrid. Right now, they were told that appointments being made today are actually being scheduled for September. So that's going to be not good for our program because all of our schools start in August. They did tell the individual that the embassy in Madrid may be opening up another site so that they can speed up the process. So we've suggested to the Spanish chairman of their district that they call in and try to schedule an appointment for sometime after July 1, so that because they cannot get their visa unless they have that guarantee form. And the same thing is happening with our American kids. We currently have 3 students who are going to Ecuador and Colombia, 3 American kids going to Ecuador and Colombia, who have already received their guarantee form. So they are able to make arrangements with the Colombian government and the Ecuadorian government to get the visa, and also with the travel agency that we use, It's Your World, to get their travel plans and airline tickets scheduled. We have 4 kids that are still waiting for their guarantee form from their German, Austrian, Korean, and Brazilian Rotary clubs. So the same thing you guys are going through, you folks are going through right now on this side is the same thing that foreign Rotarians are going through at the club level on the other side. I think that's all the points I needed to cover right now. And I'm going to turn this over to Sheila to talk about the agenda. Yeah, yes, Lateef.
So thank you for showing that chart. I was wondering if a key could be provided to explain the other initials I understand that the GF is a critical piece that happens, at the site of where the students are coming from. But can you give maybe a brief overview of what the other abbreviations mean or represent? So,
if you go up to the key in the upper right corner and click on it, a menu will pop up that indicates, I don't know, is that large enough for you folks to read?
Yeah, okay. just to point out, I would say, that this actual site is only used by Pat, Susan, and I, just FYI, but definitely we want to share, what the acronyms mean. That's no problem at all.
Yeah, for me, I just need some overview. I see.
Sure, and we're going to cover some of the forms later in a little bit more detail, and I was going to show you some examples of them as well.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, go ahead. So
I was just going to say, Latif, this is a way that Ohio Rotary, the multi-district, one of the benefits that we have with being with them is that these columns represent steps in the process of getting a student into this country. And it covers everything from the application all the way down through to the travel itinerary for their airline tickets, both coming and going.
So the first phase of me understanding this is yes, figuring out what the acronyms or what the abbreviations represent. The second piece is fully understanding of these, which am I responsible for?
Right. We'll cover that.
The other thing, Latif, what you should know is that you do not have access to what we're looking at right now.
No, you'll
never need to worry about these abbreviations.
Okay. All right.
Susan, that's fine. Sheila will be hounding you about it.
Well, it's good to have an overview to really know all the documents that are expected.
Right.
And I understand I wouldn't have access to this, but there still is an expectation on some level for me to play some kind of role in making sure these documents are completed and submitted. And
that's correct.
In the future now, because we're recording this, you can go back to this part of the recording and look at those acronyms again if you want to.
Yeah, and I apologize. I probably should have gone through the agenda right off the bat, but we will be talking more about forms, which ones you're responsible for as a YEO and counselor, talking about the process, talking about timelines, and then we'll also talk about resources of where you can go to find some of this information later, or even the documents themselves. So I apologize, I didn't do that up front. It looks like Pat stepped away. I want to share. I'm sorry, Latif, I didn't answer your question. So there's 3 forms that you saw on here. I'll go back to answer your question. So the DC is District Club and Profile. Again, I'll show you these forms in a moment, but DC is District Club and Profile. GF is Guarantee Form. And then the RC would be the next one. That's a Rotary Club compliance form. So those 3 would be the first steps that you as a YEO would be responsible to get completed and get sent in once you receive the information.
Okay. Thank you for that. I was looking at Susan, who's clearly a pro at this, and saw those greens in her area, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to catch up to her. So I just want to make sure I wasn't too far behind.
Latif, I felt the same way.
Okay. I'm glad I got some company. I looked at that and said, wow, experience do get you farther ahead.
Exactly.
One of the advantages Susan has is that she's already complied with the volunteer requirements. So she's able to see the application already. As soon as you guys, the rest of you, get that compliance or the volunteer compliance completed, then you'll be catching up with her real quickly on those green slots that you guys will never see, by the way. So you're not competing with each other.
Yeah, but I would like to say that because I'm part of the older generation, why I have to be reminded all the time about how to go in and do it, because the technology is not natural to me. So
no, I understand we're not competing. I just want to make sure that, you know, I didn't miss something along the way. I want to make sure that I guess for the benefit of this meeting, we're all on the same page in terms of what's expected and what we can do or what we have to kind of wait on and then do later, you know. And so I just want to make sure that I'm, you know, not holding anything up. So
Susan or Sheila.
Yep.
Back to you.
Okay. All right. So here is the agenda for today. Just as I'll just take a step back. We've covered the introductions. We want to try to talk about just the different phases. Today, you're not going to hear every detail about what you need to do, what the student's responsibility is. It's just a lot of information. And Pat will talk a little bit later. We'll talk about some upcoming training, and there'll be more in-depth training available. And then we'll also again mention where, you know, if you want to do some self-service and go to the district website, you can do that. And then along with the required training that you have to do online, a lot of these topics will be covered as well. And then as Pat mentioned, you know, call either the three of us, email, call, text, whatever, reach out to us at any time you have questions. We're here to support you. And if we don't know the answer, we'll definitely work to find out. But we're going to talk about, you know, what do we do now before the student gets here? What happens during the exchange year? What are you required to do as a part of reporting while the student is here, either you and or the counselor? You know, how do you handle host families? You know, how do you get them ready for the student to come? And there are some rules regarding student travel. Pat will cover that a little bit later. Students document safekeeping. The students required to have insurance. We'll talk about, you know, when and how an exchange may be terminated. And we'll talk about the Rotary Youth Exchange volunteer responsibilities. Who's responsible to do what at the district level and at the club level. And then we'll talk about some of the other programs that are available. Pat mentioned a little bit about the outbound program, the foreign study exchange program. And then again, like I said, we'll cover resources and we'll leave some time for questions. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. I'll be switching between this presentation and then also some other forms I have up. Here we have, again, our contact information. Pat kind of talked a little bit about how the program and is structured. You've heard him mention something, Ohio Erie. That's a multi-district group that a lot of districts belong to, so we can do a more effective and efficient exchange. So the sponsoring district, this is the inbound students. Their district sponsors them to come here. The students come in through Ohio Erie, and then they are assigned to specific districts. So we got assigned 5 students. And as a district level, we work with the host club and then with the YEOs, counselors, and host families. So you can see everything is kind of intertwined. And we're doing everything, all of our tasks are designed to benefit the students. Anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free. I'm just kind of going over this quickly. This is some of the things we've talked about, but at a quick overview.
Sheila, I just wanted to make one comment about the multi-district and us. Ohio Erie did not assign students to us just out of the blue. Bob Haydorn last December put in an application to get certain, actually he applied for 8 students, but because of the pandemic and the fact that back in September, we really didn't know for sure if Rotary International was going to let us have an exchange this year. The pandemic looked like it was declining, but it was kind of in a muddy decline. So we were operating kind of in a situation where we didn't know if our kids were going to be able to go out. As it has happened, our particular district is the leader of the number of outbound American students going abroad. And Bob had originally asked for 8 students to come in. But because there are only around 35 foreign students coming into the entire multi-district that stretches from Naples, Florida, all the way up to up here to Ohio along Lake Erie. That's like 1/10 of the number of students we ordinarily bring in. So we were cut back to 5 students. And the Westlake Bay Village Rotary Club was left out of the group because we didn't have enough students to distribute to our 5 Rotary clubs that were sending American kids out. Okay, I just wanted to mention that these were our choices to have these students come in.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. I just want to go back to the forms real quick. I want to hit those. This form, let me wait. I don't think I'm sharing. One moment. Okay, the form that you should see on the screen right now, this is blank, but when you receive this form, it's the guarantee form. Most of this information is going to be pre-filled. So you can see this, the student information is up top here. The host club, which is your club, and then the district information goes in this box. And again, most of this information will be pre-filled when you receive this form.
Who fills that in, Sheila?
Yeah, actually they designed it so it's trying, most of the information that's in the hub, the screenshot of the system that we were showing you with the green boxes, that's kind of like the database for all the student, volunteer, club, and district information. So it's pulling information from that system and pre-filling. So that way it'll be, hopefully be accurate, and then also be nicely typed. And
Okay.
then before I send it to you, if there's any information I can add to it to make it more complete, I'll do that before I send it to you.
Okay.
And then once you receive the form, you know, this part about the school, I'll have the name and address of the school, but I probably won't know the name of who you're speaking with at the school. So if I ask that when you get the forms, you could please try to print neatly the information that you're adding. And then this form will also require some signatures, as Pat mentioned. And then here's a section where the host family information goes.
So we print this off to get the signature, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I'll email it to you.
It will come with my signature already on it.
Yeah, Pat has an electronic signature and his will be already there. So if you see that, don't worry. Okay, and another form that we talked about, I don't know if I can get to it. There we go, so this was D and C on that chart. So this is district, club, and profile. This form does not require any signatures. I will try to get most of this information pre-filled before I send you the form. So all I would ask is that you please confirm that the information is correct. If it needs corrected, just please correct it on the form and send it back to me. And if there's any missing information, please fill it out. So this has information about your club and the district. So your club information, your president's information, the host family information. And then it talks about the school and also the community. This is in case, you know, we want to make sure that the district knows and the student and family knows like who the contacts are. What if there's an emergency situation? You know, it has like law enforcement's contact information, healthcare, the nearest hospital or med center.
This is wonderful because we used to have to put all this information in. So this is wonderful not to have to do that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm trying to make it as easy and less time on you guys as possible. And if you have any suggestions, Pat and I are open for suggestions on how we can try to make this process a little easier. Now this section here, arrival information. So most of the students, we like them to be here before school starts, obviously. So I did ask each of you to confirm, when your high school first day is. I tried to look them up myself, but if you have that information, that will be great. If you want to put it in the chat, or if you just want to tell me if you've had the, opportunity to look at that. If you haven't, that's okay. I don't know if anyone on the call has had time to look that up. I can tell you what I found. Most of them are like August 15th, August 17th, and August 22nd, and around that time frame. Did anyone have an opportunity to see when their first day of classes are?
Not yet.
I have a request to the superintendent, and I'm waiting to hear back from them from Nordonia Hills. But I think you're about right in terms of what you mentioned, that week of the 15th, 17th. But I'm waiting for confirmation from Joe Clark, who's the superintendent of Nordonia School District.
Okay.
What we'll be doing with that information is giving it to Ohio Erie, the multi-district, so they can forward it to their foreign districts, so that they can begin to plan to try to have the student here before those school start dates. But like I said, implied earlier, the bottleneck is going to be our federal government giving the visa to the kid.
Right. So it sounds like there's a chance that the students might be late arriving in some cases. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But so with this expected arrival date, we'll put like at least a week prior, about a week prior to when school starts. That way the student can have a chance to, kind of get settled, and, if they're in extracurricular activities, and get their classes assigned. So, but we'll put that date in. We typically have them come into the Cleveland airport, so that information will be filled in here. And then, as Pat mentioned, they need to have a J1 visa. So that box will be checked.
That's the only visa that will allow them into the country. The visitor's visa is up there for the short-term students, not for the long-term students. So they're required to have the J1 visa to stay here a whole year.
And then the inbound orientation, that date's already set. That's going to be August 27th and 28th. And that's one of the mandatory attendance items we'll talk about later. But so the students attend this, it's an overnight. And then this is also a required training for YEOs and counselors again. And so we'll get into a lot more detailed information. Today's session was kind of meant to, hey, what do you need to get started? What do you need to know now? Try to answer any questions you have. But the training on the 27th and 28th, and again, Pat will give you more details on that later, but you'll get a lot more in-depth training, and the host families have to attend a session during that weekend as well. We'll get you more information on that. So any questions on this form? Again, I'll try to have most of it filled out, but some of it, I will need your help on. Like, I may not know your community's information, but I'll try to find out what I can and fill it in before I send it.
Awesome.
Okay. Then there's one more form that does require signatures. Can't get this off. Get up to my.
What is the name of that last form that you showed us?
This one, district and club profile.
In club profile, district and club profile. Okay.
Okay. Thanks for the start date for Kenston. Yeah,
Sure.
District and club profile. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the other form up to show you. One moment. The other form is the club compliance form. I'll share that in just a moment. I'm still working with multiple screens, so okay. Now this form, what it's saying is your club is certifying and that you're going to adhere to all the requirements of the program and that you've taken all these steps to prepare for the student. So this part I'll have filled in when you get it, what you will need to do with your club president. And just as a note, these forms are made for the Rotary year, next Rotary year, because the students aren't arriving until August. So some of these forms will say president, but it's actually your club PE that needs to sign it because it's the president during the next Rotary year. So for this form, again, your club's going to certify that it's done all these, that you've, that you're ready for the student to come. You filled out the guarantee form. You can see the checklist. I'm not going to go through each item, but if you have questions, let me know. But it's a lot of the stuff we're covering today. You make sure all the boxes are checked. Mm-hmm. And again, if I know it, I'll have your PE's name and your name filled in here. And this would require your signatures, and then this one you'd return back to me as well. So, Latif, did that help with some of your questions you have? Those are the forms you are responsible for to get those turned back in once you get them.
Yes, yes, it does.
And then if you have questions on them, feel free to reach out.
Okay.
Okay.
And those questions will be sent to us once we finish the background check.
Correct. And we'll also send the students applications. So you'll be able to see the picture of the student, and within the student application, there's a lot of information in there. Their school transcript is in there. There's a letter that the student writes, saying why they should be an exchange student. There's a reference letter from typically one of their teachers. The parents write a letter. So there's a lot of information in there as well. There's also medical information. We may not send all of that just for privacy reasons. And we just ask that, you don't share that student application with anyone who is not vetted. Now you can share it with the school because they're vetted through their own process. Okay.
And the first host family will be vetted by then also. So
yes.
You'll be sharing it with them.
Correct. Thank you. That's correct. Okay, let me get back to the slide presentation here to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then, okay. So all of that pre-work is done before the student arrives. And Pat also mentioned the host family. So once the host family, they have to go through the approval process too. And then also is required is that typically it's the YEO who does the host family interview. And, Susan or Dave can talk about that if you have specific questions, but within the portal, and we'll get to that in a minute too, you have access to what's called the portal, and there's reporting that's required, and any reporting that's required is done through the portal. So one is the host family interview. There's preset questions to ask. Really, the interview is for you to go to the home, look at their home, as the host family has provided pictures of their home and information about them and their family. We want to make sure, it's a safe and good environment for the student to be in. So you can see that, the pictures weren't fictitious, which we have never run into that from what I'm aware of, but it's a good check. Get a chance to talk to the host family because the counselor can do that too, because typically the counselor is the one that has that real connection with the host family as well as the student. But so again, that interview is done before the student arrives, and that report is submitted. And another thing before the student arrives, you want to confirm the flight information. The counselor and the host family are going to be having contact with the student prior to the student arrival to get to know the student, build rapport, and also meet, the student's natural parents.
But by the way, Susan, because of the internet, our just as a side note on making sure that you've gone out and looked at the house and the family and interviewed them, all three of our American kids that have got their guarantee form have already gone to Google Street and looked at their house that they're going to be staying in next year in Ecuador and in Colombia. So 30 years ago, we never were faced with that. Now we're looking into people's backyards.
Right. There's also, what this is, meet the student in the airport and the first night questions. What this is first night questions. It's questions that the student, you want to go over with the student because it's questions that they're probably going to have, when they arrive. And there's also questions that the host family might have. So it's more like in that relationship of what to do and what to expect. And I'll show you a little bit later on the district website where there's resources and these questions are actually out there. And then once the student arrives, obviously you want to let their natural parents know that the student arrived safely. And again, we talked about enrolling the student in school. And then also if a lot of times it's important to get the student involved in extracurricular, you know, maybe they have an interest in soccer or drama or whatever the case may be. You want to try to get them involved, you know, to enhance their cultural experience here.
Yeah.
Sheila, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Susan, I think you have a question too. I didn't want to jump in front of you. I'm sorry.
I just had a comment that in the last 3 or 4 years, the kids in Stowe have all joined the marching band.
Oh.
Even though they don't play instruments, but because the marching band is some way that they can, you know, participate. And they've had such success, they get to travel then with the band trip, you know, to the East Coast when the band goes. So even encourage them to get involved in things they've never been involved in before.
Great point.
Even if they don't play an instrument, I learned how to play the triangle, so I could do stuff like that.
So I had an opportunity to print off these slides and had a discussion with the club, you know, about some of these slides so that they can give me some questions that they may have.
Okay.
And one of the questions was like historically, what challenges were experienced during the registration process at school? What can we expect in terms of some challenges that you might have seen in the past that we may want to pay attention to so that the registration process for the school is a smooth one?
Susan, do you want to speak to that, or
well, yeah, I would just say that I have always had the help of the host family in registering the student for classes, because the host family knows far more than I do about, you know, what the student has to consider. And it's always been very successful. So don't forget that you have that resource.
Susan, have you ever had an issue with a subsequent host family, the second family, not getting information on behalf of the student because the first family is the registered family? Or do you know if the school changes that information?
You have to make it happen. Yes, okay. You do have to make that happen. The family changes.
That's an item that you will want to go over with your second host family to make sure that that's done. Because if there's a problem at school, they're going to go to their records. And if they wind up calling the first host family, it'll be just delay getting the information to the right people.
Is there a form that can be given to the school that lists all the host families and maybe some information so that once you hit a certain period in the calendar, the school knows to call the second family and not the first family?
Really no form. I would say the counselor as a point of contact with the school should be the one, you know, having that conversation, and there might not be like a set date because that's a little bit fluid. You always have to work with the first host family and second host family of when that transition date is going to take place, whether there's vacations or, you know, life happens, you know, so sometimes it's not always set in stone.
Yes. But yeah, David,
a list of the families and then tell the school, hey, at this point, you know, any correspondence or contact, please go to, you know, the second family listed on that form or document that I gave you. I mean, would that be a way to operate? Or
yeah, I'd say just work with your school and see kind of what they want and what they expect, and I think, you know, you could work it out that way.
David?
Oh, hi, Patrick. I did want to make a comment.
Yeah, because I know you do things
I've been involved with inbound. Please?
Yeah, I was going to say, you do a little bit things a little bit differently at the Medina
We do.
Club.
We do. We've been involved with Inbound, or I personally, for over 20 years. So the role of relationship is everything. I meet with the counselor at least once a month in person at the school. Our club is very active, and in the past, Patrick, you probably remember, we would have 5 or 6 Inbound students in our club alone. So I must say, don't rely just on the formality of a form. You really need to know the counselor and be comfortable there, because that's going to solve an awful lot of things going down of, was this done on time? Really important. The next thing we've done, and I'm going to ask you to consider it if you're new in the program or newer, the first night always was spent, the students spent it with the Rotarian, either the counselor or with the YEO. We are supposed to know much more about the program than the host family. And then after we make an evaluation, then we bring the student to the host family. But don't expect the host family to know as much about the program as Rotary. Please remember, we have a chain of command. There's a reason for that. But again, I'll ask all of our newer people to remember, relationship is everything, that personal relationship. When I'm interviewing students or when I'm going over changes or inviting them to different things, I do it in the office of the counselor. And all of our records are kept there. In the event that from another country, a parent calls and said, I need this right away, and they can't get a hold of me, they can get a hold of the school. So everything I keep as a record in the school, a copy of the student's passport, all of his papers, how to get a hold of me, and all the medical records and insurance forms. So again, to our new people, relationship is everything.
That is a great point, Dave, because you know, as far as one of the responsibilities that we'll chat about is either the YEO or counselor, whoever's going to take on that role, is to, you know, educate the host family and answer their questions.
Yep, it has to come through the Rotarian. We have to be Google.
Yeah.
Do you register the student as the Rotary Club counselor, or do you still leave that up to the host family?
I do it with them. The host family is accompanied. So a good example, we had a student 3 years ago who arrived with a medical problem. I set up an appointment with the doctor within 24 hours of the student's arrival, and I went to the doctor's office with the host family. I called Bob Haydorn when I had arrived. So again, I'm following that chain of command. I set the appointment. I accompanied the parent and the student, called Bob Haydorn when I arrived.
And I think that's all for the purpose of reducing the amount of work you have to do later if there is a problem. So
oh yeah, Bob is wonderful. Just like you, Patrick, I call you when I have a question so I don't forget something or proceed in a way that would cause confusion or delay.
Okay.
That's true. Thank you. Okay, Sheila.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to the all right. Let's talk about the exchange year. So once the student arrives, you know, what can you expect? You know, what's going to happen? So Matt, I'm going to turn it back over to you to chat with us a little bit about that.
I'm going to try to go over this fairly quickly because I see that it's already 10:30.
Right.
And we want to try to keep this on track. The student really needs to be included in your program so that your members feel a part of this really, really important program for the club and the community. So as many of your meetings as you can justify and work with the school so it doesn't interfere with the school too much, to have your student attend. I think the Medina Club and the Medina Club, almost every week you've had your student at your meetings.
That's correct, and the student has to report. You
know what? It means a lot to these teenagers. We may think that, oh, they don't want to have anything to do with us. But I've talked with our American kids that will be going out in August, and they have indicated that it's a highlight of their week to be able to have lunch with and interact with the adults and the Rotarians. It's a big part of their, and the schools agree that it is an important part of the students' education, that they interact with leaders in the community, which we are as Rotarians.
And Patrick, you taught me how to involve students, not only in the club meeting and in service project, but in meeting with the public. So following our orientation out at Rex Lake a few months ago, I invited our student, Dustin, to help me co-author the public relations piece that went to the news media and to the district. So he had a hand in writing that piece.
And these kids are really talented.
Gosh, yeah.
Looking at our calendar, there's a couple of mandatory events that we require our foreign students to attend. And the very first one, and it's really the most important, is the initial inbound orientation. Right now, that weekend is scheduled for August 27th and 28th. In many cases, these kids will already have arrived or will be just arriving, but they're required to be at that so that we can get to meet them. They get to know us at the district level, and we can begin implementing Susan's cultural awareness training program for them. That's going to be August 27th to the 28th. That's Saturday and Sunday. It's at Rex Lake, at the Akron Rotary Camp, which is located at Portage Lake State Park. And the address and everything will be out in an email prior to that to remind everybody. But if you put that date on your calendar, we will be scheduling the training session for the club personnel on Saturday morning when you bring the student out. And then we're going to have host family training Sunday afternoon when the host family comes to pick the student up.
Pat?
Yeah.
I would like to invite all of the YEOs and the counselors to do the overnight, because it's fun to stay there, get to know the kids, participate in the campfires and, just relax. And, it is a training session, but we also have lots of fun things for the kids to be engaged in, and, would like to have more participation of the adults as well. I have always been the one female counselor, or I guess counselor in the cabin. So I invite anybody else to come and stay as well.
One thing Susan, one thing I've learned over the years is that the more you interact with these kids, the more rewarding the program is. This gives you a chance to see and meet the other kids. So yes, by all means, you're welcome to stay overnight with us and get to know these kids a lot better. We expect 2 additional training programs. One we incorporate with the interviews of next year's, that'd be actually 2 years from now, the outbound students who will begin applying in July of this year for the exchange 2023 and 2024. We may have 1 or 2. We've actually got 2 kids that are already pounding on our door to apply for that time period. And they will be invited to this orientation also in August. Their interview is going to be probably, we've got to confirm this, so it's not a written in stone date yet, but December 10th and 11th with the Akron Rotary Camp. And then we also want to plan orientations for the foreign students, possibly in October or November of this year. But Susan, Sheila, and I need to sit down and work that out, how that's going to happen. So you'll get more information about that. And then the only other really final mandatory orientation or event for the students is the district conference next year in 2023, which is either going to be in April or May. We have not received a confirmation date yet from the governor-elect as to when and where that's going to be. But just mentally note that the three major events, or the two major events that they have to be at, will be August 27th and 28th, the December time period, and then the district conference.
Yeah, and Pat, we usually have one in February. It's usually the second weekend in February.
That's correct. And that's why I said you and I and Sheila and the rest of the district committee have to get together and plan this calendar. It was all in Bob's head. Unfortunately, we don't have that available to us now. But I do also want to indicate that our website, the district website, and the sublink to the youth exchange portion has a calendar on it. Now, this is not the district calendar that's on the very first, on the homepage of the district website. This is the calendar that is on the sub.
And I'll be sharing just so you all can see what that looks like in a little bit.
Okay, and that has all of our district youth exchange programs and information on it, including addresses and locations. So you can always check these events that are required for your students to attend. Let me talk about two more things real quick. We, regarding money, each of you have committed to giving a certain sum to your student each week or each month. And they're also expected to have funds available to them from their parents back in their foreign country to augment any other expenses they have. They're not expected to pay for their room and board, so make sure I think all our host families understand that. That's one of the benefits of being a host family. The Ohio area, our multi-district and our district have always required our students to have what we call an emergency fund. Basically, it's an emergency fund of $350. Believe it or not, that has not changed in 40 years. That's been the dollar amount 40 years ago, and it's still the dollar amount today. That should be available to both you and the student, a member of your Rotary Club and the student, and it's separate from their spending money account. We don't want them spending any money out of that account until they go home. If there's anything left in it, then they'll get the balance of that back. They should have a second account set up so that their parents can transfer money into it, and it should probably have an ATM card or a debit card associated with it. And that's the account that they should use. Actually, you can deposit your Rotary stipend to them into that account directly each month. I've usually found it advisable to, if you have a banker in your club, that they help you set those two accounts up so that your treasurer has access to it and so that your treasurer can transfer the money into it. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Yeah,
and I guess
I did have a question, and I think you did answer it in terms of the stipend. One of the club members did ask about direct deposit and whether that would be something that we can do with this stipend versus trying to meet up with the kid.
And I think that both David and Susan have that type of program set up in their clubs so that the club treasurer can make his monthly deposit straight into that account. And can even set it up on an automatic deposit so they don't have to remember to do it.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Okay. English, English, English. All of these kids can speak English when they come. It may be our person from Korea. The European kids are probably going to speak it fluently, and you won't even be able to tell that they've got that. They watch too much American television, and they even pick up the accent extremely well. Korean and sometimes Brazilian and Japanese sometimes have a little bit of a challenge with the language, but they still have to speak English. And actually, there's nobody they really can speak Korean to or Portuguese to. We just don't have bilingual students in our schools. Anyways, the more they speak English, the easier they'll be able to understand as the year progresses. One other thing you should be scheduling with them, and I would schedule this very early in the year. When we talk about students' attendance at Rotary Club meetings, sometime maybe in October, but certainly I wouldn't go beyond October, is to try to get them up to speak about themselves so that your Rotary Club members get to know them and their families. And it's a good way to get them practicing public speaking too. Susan, I'm going to let this go back to you.
One concern, and I'm sorry, I do have quite a bit of questions, and Sheila, we could speak another time, I know.
Okay. Good questions. Go ahead, Latif, no problem.
But there was a concern about having the students that was raised by a club member about having the students attend every Rotary meeting. Our Rotary meeting starts at 12 on Tuesday. They were concerned that the student may not always be able to miss class to make those meetings. And I'm really only bringing that up to get a sense of the best practices to see if that has been an issue. And when you make a comment like, the student's required to make every meeting, I'm wondering if there's some flexibility there.
Latif, I don't want to make or have this be a misunderstanding. They are not required to attend every meeting. Yeah. They should come as often as their school permits them to. Mm-hmm. It's been our experience, and I think David and Susan's experience, that the kids will work very diligently to get the school to agree to that because they'd rather eat your restaurant food than the cafeteria food.
Actually, I was going to say that I try to get them to come twice a month and, check to see that they're in classes that are not requiring a quiz or something of that nature, some sort of assessment when I take them. So it's flexible, and I just work with them to find out what their work schedule is. And it has worked in the past. But okay. I don't take them every time, at every meeting. That doesn't happen in Akron.
Okay.
Okay, well, it looks we are running a little bit short on time. But what I would kind of like to do, Pat, if you're okay, I'd kind of like to hit on the topics that are more immediate in nature as opposed to before the student arrives and what we need to do to prepare. Yeah. And then as far as there's some other information that's really important, but maybe we don't need to worry about that till a little bit later on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next couple of slides, I do want to talk about the reporting timeframes and when your reports are required and how to do that. I'm going to share the district website in a couple minutes, so I'll kind of maybe incorporate that piece when we look at the website, when we talk about preparing for the next host family. But this is important even for the first host family. Again, we talked about that the host family must be qualified and trained before they host. And then also that anytime there's a change in host family, whenever the student goes to the first host family and also a change, it needs to be reported. And again, I'll show you more about that in a moment. When the student gets here, there's very clear directions and restrictions on travel. But again, we'll cover more on that probably the weekend of the inbound training. And again, this information is also available on the district website. But are there any questions just real quick on the travel? I don't want to skip over anything if you have a question, but I just want to leave time for last minute questions.
David and the Medina and the Lakewood Club really are the only ones that may have to move quickly on these travel, because they live so close to the borderline of our district. There may be events or businesses that kids in that community go to across the district line. And those clubs should sit down and get the form filled out to get the permission and the parameters of how far they can travel. Like if there's a major mall just outside of the district, I'm thinking of Lakewood and Lorain County, where some of the big malls are now. They'd need to get approval, and I'm not going to be a problem regarding that. As far as kids wanting to travel other times of the year with families up to Niagara Falls or Columbus, we do need to go through these prior district approval programs to make sure that the I'm sorry for my macaw. I'll shut the door in a minute. But yeah, independent travel is not permitted. So no trips out to the East Coast or anything like that.
In the past, what I've done, particularly with those students who have sports, I will look at what their season sports venues are. And then I would have reported that to Bob Haydorn well in advance, so he would know, and then he approved that a student is leaving the district. But again, I never tried to call Bob the day before. It was always look over the schedule, see where the student's going to be, from week to week, and then ask Bob what to do. And then Bob would always say, have that form ready and turned in well in advance. So please be proactive with your students, because they're just teenagers and they're not that way. But we don't want to be calling Patrick, 8 hours before a student's ready to go to a ball game in Ashland County or something.
But they've known about it for a while.
Right. And like I said, this is more information we can get into detail later on, if that's okay, unless you have a specific question for today. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to keep this on time.
Yeah, Sheila, the only other thing I want to mention about travel, in the past, the inbound students have had an opportunity through the multi-district to travel out to the East Coast or out to California in a pre-planned program. I checked with Ohio Erie today. Because of the pandemic, this is not on the drawing board yet. They are working on it, see what they can come up with. But it's been 3 years now since they've done anything like this. So it's not ready yet, but we will keep you advised as to whether these travel opportunities are going to be available to our foreign students.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, on the next slide, we just kind of wanted to mention the students' document safekeeping. We just want to stress that, we do not want to keep the documents from the students. However, it might be advisable to have, as David mentioned, the counselors have a copy. at the school. But these are just important documents that we just don't want them to be misplaced when the student needs them again.
Yeah, we tell our American kids to try to keep their important documents in their largest suitcase so that they're not taking it with them on, they're not potentially losing it. When they move families, they'll always take that big suitcase with them, but they won't take it for an overnight trip with the school. And they almost, in our country, they almost never will need that document. So they're pretty free to travel. If they travel up to Canada, we'll have to sit down and talk about all the mechanics that go into that. The students do arrive in this country with what's called a multiple entry J1 visa, which gives them the ability to go in and out. It's a question of whether Canada will let them come in. And we really don't have any kids going any other countries.
Right. But again, more to come on that later. The next thing, just real quickly, student insurance. They're required to have health insurance when they arrive. Within the portal, you'll be able to access their student health insurance card, and you want to have that printed and available in the event, you know, the student has breaks an arm or gets injured and needs to go and file a claim. There's also information on the district site when and if you should need to have that information of how to handle and file a claim, and I'll show you where that is in just a moment. And then exchange termination, and again, we'll hit on this a little bit more in the training in detail in August. I know, Pat, do you mind if I just go through this real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay. So as far as exchanging and termination, you know, one way is the normal exchange when their exchange is scheduled to be over in June and they go back home. The other one is an early termination, which as it says here, is an extreme measure, and that's something that the club cannot handle on their own. If there would be a situation that would arise, if it's a behavior issue, you know, the student gets in trouble, whatever the myriad of reasons could be, that would be a decision that would have to be made on the district level. But again, communication is important here. The main thing I would just stress, if you see any issues, and again, that's why the continued and frequent contact with the student by the counselor is very important, and the contact with the school. So if there is any issues that we can try to handle before it becomes a big issue, we want to be able to stay on top of that. But there is a process if the exchange needs to be terminated early. And again, you know, we'll go into that later, but we just kind of wanted to bring that up and make you aware that it has happened before. It's not very often, but it has happened, and there is a process if it needs to happen.
Remember, again, we're dealing with that part of the population that does not have their frontal lobes fully developed. And they oftentimes have a tendency to make a mistake or a misunderstanding. And Bob Haydorn had a program set up called a contract, where rather than sending a kid home as a first knee-jerk reaction, we'd sit down and work out an agreement between the kid and the district and the club on the problem that they caused and how and get an agreement from them in writing of how they're not going to let that happen again. And that has been an extremely effective tool over the years to solve inadvertent problems and keep the program and the kid. Actually, most of the time we find we have a much better kid when they've signed that agreement. Yes.
Well, we're down to 2 minutes, so I'm just going to briefly kind of go through these. As far as the responsibilities, again, the YEO is more of like an administrative function at your club to kind of make sure, and this could vary within the club. These are just suggested responsibilities. Sometimes the club, the same person is a YEO and counselor, which is not ideal, but in certain situations, you know, that does happen. The counselor is usually the one that has the main contact with the student, host family, and school. And the other ones we can go through later. I just don't want to take the time now. I don't want the webinar to end if we have any questions to go over. But again, if you have questions after this, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm available anytime. The next grid just kind of goes over the online required training, but you will be aware of this because you will be assigned this by the system, and it is important. This is part of the certification and approval process. If these aren't completed, then you don't get certified. We talked a little bit about these other programs. I would like to maybe put this off for the next session, if that's okay. I'd like to hit now the resources. I want to jump to our district website just to kind of show you where you can find some information. In the meantime, here, let's see, of course, trying to hurry. All right.
Sheila,
yeah.
Will the PowerPoint be available to us?
Yes. Yes, this session, the recording and also the PowerPoint will be available. I'm going to work with Cheryl to get that on the district website.
Okay.
And I'll kind of show you. So this is when you log on to the district website, this is like the main page that you'll land on. And as Pat mentioned, the header up here, it'll say youth services program. So you have to use the drop down to get to youth exchange.
That's new, by the way.
For those of you, I'm sorry, what, Pat?
I just said that is new. It used
Right.
to be a direct link, but now they've got a drop-down menu.
Yeah. So then once you get on the youth exchange page, you have the options over here. Now, some of this stuff I will tell you is a little dated. We're working on getting the website updated. But in some of the information that is on here, we've talked about today. So calendar of events. This is a calendar Pat was talking about. And again, this is a living, breathing document. But as we go along through the exchange year, you'll be able to click on this and see what is coming up. You'll see in yellow, they're mandatory events. A lot of the events are to be determined. Just real quick, we typically try to plan a group event roughly once a month, which allows the students to socialize and allows club members to be involved and meet the students. But not all of those events are mandatory, but we do like the students to participate when possible. But again, we'll cover more of this in the training in August. I just want to kind of make you aware of what's on the website, what's available to you. This link right here will be really helpful. Resources for YEOs and counselors. And this section, this is where you'll find today's training will be out here.
Okay.
Here's a link to the volunteer application. This is a link to the portal. Once you are approved, this portal is where you will access to do your monthly reporting, and you will get a user ID and password. This is where when you go to your first host family, your host, I'm just going to pull one up here. This is Lakewood. As you can see, any information from their host family application, you'll see their pictures, the information, and you'll want to scroll down where it says submit home visit interview report. When you click on that link, it will pre-fill with that host family's information. Whoever is doing the interview has to fill out from this point on. And it gives you the questions and you have to give the answer from a drop down. And then I think below there's like a free form. So if there's any comments that you need to put in here. So that's the host family report. That's required before the student arrives or before the student changes to the subsequent host family. Okay, I can't get that to go away. Okay, the next thing within the portal also is where you will put your, let me find it again, is the student's monthly report. The counselor's required monthly to give an update on how's the student doing? How are they doing in school? How are they transitioning? But again, that's important to do that every month. And you want to do that before the calendar ends. So like for the month of August when they arrive, or actually September, you want to have that, this has to be submitted before the end of the calendar month. So I'm not going to pick a student because I don't want you to see their information, but you would pick your student And it follows the same format as kind of like that host family report did. It'll kind of walk you through the questions to ask and allow you to provide comments. So I'll get
these portal forms are absolutely a godsend. There was a time period for about 5 years where you had to download a piece of paper, print it out, fill it out, upload it. And it was just so time consuming. And then somebody got the great idea to make it an online form. It probably doesn't take you 5 minutes to get to the portal, fill it out, and you're done.
Sorry to stop sharing for a moment. It wasn't allowing me to get to my top of my screen, but correct. Yes, they are extremely helpful. And then when that information is filled out, it feeds directly into the other system that we kind of showed you earlier. That's more the administrative and tracking system that, that Pat and Susan and I access.
Yeah.
Back to the district website. Again, there's so much information on here that you can look at. And again, it's not meant to replace any in-person training, but it allows you, if you have a question, you can come here. This form right here, I think is important as you prepare. It's called Club YEO and Counselor Checklist. This document will kind of tell you, how to prepare for the student and what needs to happen. So we kind of developed this as a reminder. These are all the things that kind of need to be done. And a lot of these we talked about today.
Right. Another thing that would be helpful is if we could have a list of all of us YEOs and counselors and, the district chair people on a list so that we can contact one another. For example, I want to be able to get in touch with Latif, because I have somebody who wants to be part of Rotary and is already helped us in the district at the district level with the YEOs, and she lives in Nordonia Hills.
Great. Yeah, it's a great idea. And we'll get one of those available, and we'll either email that out, or we could put it on the district website. There's certain things that are available, that are accessible to the public. So we probably want to make that private and just send that via email, but that's a good idea.
I'd love to hear from you, Susan. Love to hear from you.
Just a quick question in trying to get, again, prepared for the next steps, and that's getting the documentation sent out. So what's really important, again, is getting yourself certified, getting your host family certified. I may be able to get the club compliance and the district profile to you sooner if that would help. But, of course, as Patrick mentioned, the guarantee form is really the most important form, because we need to get that back so the student can continue with their process and trying to be able to get approved to get here.
Right. Yeah.
Our government is pretty crappy about this. If for some reason they don't have that guarantee form when their appointment does come up, they get thrown at the end of the line, and they may not get here till October or later. And so it's really important. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to get that guarantee form into the system and up over to the kid.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I hope to have that in by Tuesday so I can have our president sign.
Okay.
Okay. Once again, this is not a competition, but you did hear that she's going to have it in on Tuesday.
I'm trying to. Yes.
Susan and Dave are the gold standard. We're just trying to establish some best practices and be like them.
And I will ask, has everyone, if you haven't received an email link for your training, for your background checks, please let me know, because I can resend them. And then I also want to let you know, a lot of the emails come from the system, and it comes from Ohio Erie. So you can let your other volunteers and host families know, in your references. A lot of times those emails go into the junk mail or your spam folder. And so when you provide a reference, or, if your other committee are going to submit their application, just let them know that to look in their junk mail for emails regarding this process, and probably from Ohio Erie. So it's going to look a little odd. That's not spam, and it really is a valid email.
Also, make sure you give us the correct email address. Double check it before you hit that send button.
For your references.
For the references.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions that we can answer now? Hey, I really do want to thank you for participating today. We already have arrangements made with those who were not able to attend. Working behind the 8 ball here is challenging at best, but I think everybody is moving along very well. I know our American kids that are going out are very excited about getting to know who their foreign Rotarians are. So I know our foreign students coming here are in the same mental condition and are looking forward to getting to know you and meet you. One advertisement real quick I do want to make before we close. As you know, we have to restructure the district committee so that future kids will have this opportunity. If you or you know of anyone in your club that might be a good candidate to come in and join the district committee and work with us, we certainly, please have them contact me about working on the district committee. We have a lot of, we don't have many jobs, but the more people that we have working with us, the less challenges we have in the future. So if you have somebody in your club that you think might be a good candidate, please refer them to us. I don't have anything else. Sheila, do you have anything else?
No, other than just thank you, and please don't hesitate to contact me with questions. And we tend to do a lot of communication by email. If you prefer a different method, just let me know, because I'm happy to text if that's easier, or call, whatever works best for you.
Susan, do you have any comment as our trainer?
I would just say that this has been very informative. I think, for people who've not been involved before, and even for those of us who've been there 9 years, it's good to see it all in print and to be reminded of what we all have to do. And it is a task of a village to move forward and to get these kids through. And, the stronger the relationship among villagers is, the better we're equipped to do it.
Dave or Terry or Latif, any comments or questions? Okay.
I have a plethora of comments and questions, and I'm going to reach out after this.
Okay, please do that. Okay, I think we're done then. If anyone, okay, this will be available on the website, by the way, again, just as a reminder. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You're welcome. Bye.